I think it is a lot to do with uh, there is so much to explore out there. And while the internet has been truly, it's a boon for everybody. It's been great. Again, moderation, right? It's important that how do you know where to stop? How do you know where to draw the line?
I think everyone has a.
Oh,
There are
absolutely.
different journeys and different places.
Yeah,
Like I say, वो सांप सीढ़ी पे आप कौन से नंबर पर हो और
correct.
कौन से नंबर पे.
Correct. Which
We're
is
all
why I believe that you can't, not everybody has got the same journey as you have,
ever. Yeah.
and not everybody is going to have the same one. So, best is not to complain or compare oneself.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed. Totally.
it's not in the good way or in the bad way. You do what you do best and what you need to do,
Yeah.
and everybody else will figure it out.
Welcome to another episode of Unbox with Tanvi, a podcast where we speak to people who've led unconventional lives, made some bold choices, and are contributing to the world. Today, I have with me someone who has almost 20 years of experience in media. She's worked with channels like BBC, Discovery, Disney. She's headed content creation in film, OTT, as well as television. She has movies like Barfi and shows like Battle of Sargari, to her credit. And most recently, she's the author of a book called A Dark and Shiny Place. Please help me welcome Pragati Deshmukh. Welcome to the show, Pragati.
Hi, Tanvi. It's so lovely to be here. And thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
No, my pleasure. And I'm glad you could take time out. I know you're on a very tight, busy schedule.
Yes, but I'm very excited to be here, and there was no way I wouldn't come here to be here with you because we've had some amazing offline conversations and there's so much in common.
Yeah, true. Fauji Bachas, both of
Yes,
us. Media background, both of us.
yes.
So, yeah, you've written a book. I'm kind of struggling to finish my first. So, I'm going to take some pointers from you for that.
Anything, whatever you need.
So, tell me, how has, while we'll get into some of the stuff that you've done more recently, how do you think your early childhood has affected some of the choices you've made as an adult?
Wow. Okay. I think, and being an army kid, you know how it is. Very blessed to have that upbringing and that world to grow up in, where I think equality, things like freedom of speech, picking your passion, all of these things just came naturally.
Yeah,
There was a
true.
lot of freedom. There was, less restriction about who you need to be when you grow up. It was a lot of it was, this is your safe space,
Yeah.
and grow into a, beautiful human being that you desire to be. I think given that upbringing, that background, there was a lot of, weightage given to creative art
Yeah.
as well. And I've been, I would say, writing in my own little way since I was a child, whether it was school articles or I started writing my first book at between 11 and 13.
Wow.
Of course, it's still unfinished and it's lying somewhere, and my father has taken the effort of, converting those pages into like digital pages.
Trust dads and mums to do all of
Totally.
that dirty work for you, saying, listen, I've done half the work for you.
Yes.
Now you can finish it.
Yes, and he's kept it. And, even today he told me, he said, okay, it's time that you may want to revisit that one. I said, maybe. So I think all of these factors put together, the travel, because we moved, you know how it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
we
yeah.
moved every year, 2 years. So the amount of exposure that we get, all of these things added to being a person who didn't want to be chained. And for me, it was important about exploring what are my limits, what more can I do, what is more exciting. And I think the creative space was a very exciting one for me. And I sort of fell in organically. I'm very blessed that even after marriage, my husband, my in-laws, they're all, just equally supportive. So yeah, it's kind of helped the journey to where I am today.
I think you mentioned two things that I want to build a little more on or ask you. One, you said, you've had a lot of support. And the second was the freedom. But I want to talk about especially with women, how important do you think is having the right support system in place? It need not only be restricted to your in-laws,
Yes.
but
Oh, I think it is very important. And more so for women. I would say for every individual, it is important
yeah.
because we are, as a species, we are we're individualistic, but we cannot survive unless we're in a society.
Yeah,
It's
that's true.
just, it's
Yeah, we're pack animals at the end
we
of the
are
day.
pack
Yeah.
animals, right?
Yeah.
So it is very important as an individual, no matter what your, regardless of gender, if you don't have the backing and support of whether it's the people that matter to you, it's family, it's friends, or it is simply the opportunities that you're getting and in that space, it's going to be difficult to grow, and more so for women, given the society and the oppression that women have faced over the years.
True.
It is getting better. So it is definitely, no matter how talented you are, if people don't believe in you and don't give you that chance and give you that, highway to drive, you wouldn't really be able to make it.
It's very
It
difficult.
is difficult.
No, I think when you said, to grow, it's like a plant grows needs the right nurturing. For people to grow also, they
Yes.
need the right
Yes.
environment or support
Environment.
structure to grow. There are people who grow, how plants grow through buildings.
Yes.
There are
Yes.
people who overcome it, but I think those
Yes.
are exceptions and not really the rule.
They are exceptions, and it takes a certain kind to be that.
Yeah.
Like in plants, like you rightly mentioned, there's a certain, not all plants can do it.
Yeah.
So if you talk about going against the norm, yes, there are it's much difficult, but there are a lot of examples. I wouldn't say that it's as rare. A lot of people have done it, and um,
Well, they probably had their own mindset that got created maybe out of the adversity that they faced. Maybe they had a different setup. Maybe they had a different
I
psychology.
yes, I think that, and I think sometimes the circumstances, the situations that one is in, that drives us to find a certain strength in us that we didn't know we had.
Yeah, that is true. Especially, and I think most of us can relate to what you just said, because when you look back in your life, at least there'll be at least one moment in your life where you felt the world's coming crashing down and you still found the strength to move beyond.
Yes.
And that probably is kind of what you're saying.
Yes, I think, okay, let's go back to one of my favorite authors,
Yeah.
someone like Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
Okay. Very few people know about her personal life.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I've
because
read so much of Agatha Christie, but I
yes,
don't know much about her.
like we know that she is the best crime fiction writer, and her books reflect very interesting characters. One is the time that she wrote in. There was, of course, the technology and all of that was not there that you have today. So everything was based on pure detective work, which is the beauty. But what if you actually ever listen to some of her interviews or a couple of articles that were written about her personal life? What fascinated her most was human psychology, was
Wow.
various personalities. And there came a point in her life where she was so tired of everything that was around her, whether it was her marriage, it was her fame, it was her writing. She was just so tired of everything that she vanished. There was a short period of her time that she just took the car and she drove off. Now imagine, in
Wow.
that day and age, she just drove off and nobody knew where she was. How do you contact her? And she was a celebrity writer even back then, right? And few days later, she just came back like nothing had happened. And she came back, aligned. And after that, she wrote her last three or four books, I think. She said, I was just so tired, I needed a break. She went off, she stayed in a hotel for a few days. She talked to no one. Nobody knew that she was there. She stayed under, alias and whatever. And she said, I just needed to rejuvenate.
My God.
So,
It's so beautiful that story that you've just shared. It's almost like we all, and especially women, I think, need to recognize, I think everybody needs to recognize the need to take time out and take care of yourself and your
yes.
mental health and uh, your own peace of mind and your sanity.
Yes. Yes.
And I know a lot of working mothers, especially, don't have the luxury. But I keep telling myself the bathroom's the best place. Lock yourself in there, have like a really long bath.
Yes, I think
Yeah.
that's a great advice. I've done that myself, so I know it really works. And when you want to get away from people, just take that 5 minutes off and go into the bathroom. But going back to what you just said about young mothers and working mothers, I think being a mother itself is a full-time job, right?
Yeah.
Um, I ain't one yet, but I know you are, and I know that you can understand because I have seen that with my sisters and my mother's friends. It's anybody who says that mother, housewife, you're not doing anything professionally. It is so unfair because
It is. I agree.
it is a full-time job at your and the responsibility of bringing in another life into this world and having the responsibility of shaping up that human being. You're pretty much shaping up the future, right? Like I've always believed, like, you know how it is, we're in the media and we have access to communication to so many people out there, various age groups. And I believe that because of the power of mass communication, we have a lot of responsibility about what we are saying, the kind of content we are putting out there. It is, nobody's put a gun to our head and said, oh, this is what you should do and should not do. It's, I think it comes from within
Yeah.
what kind of a future we want to shape for uh, the future generations or even our old age in that sense.
True. True.
So imagine, we have the power of shaping mindsets, but
True.
as a mother, you have the responsibility, not
Of
just the
shaping the
power.
people who will shape the mindset.
Exactly. So it's and in that, to be able to go out there and do a professional job, it's not easy. I have tremendous respect for, mothers who are working and even not working.
No, I
Being
agree.
women.
And sometimes when you're in organizations or your bosses, I think it's every organization has different cultures. You worked
Yes.
across the board, from BBC to Discovery and Disney, and I'm sure the org culture in all of these organizations was different.
Yes.
But I think ultimately it's your boss and the team that you're working with that really makes all the difference,
Yes.
right? That
Yes.
really
Yes.
does.
I think the people that you work with
On a daily basis,
on a
yeah.
daily basis,
Yeah,
it
that
is
really makes a
important.
difference.
It
True.
is. So, like I always say, a brand is never bad. A company is never bad. It's always the people that go in there and represent and make it what it is.
Yeah, they say,
Like the
you join
identity.
a company, but you
Quit because of the
quit
boss.
the boss. Yeah, you quit because of the boss.
Yes.
So, you've been inspired by Agatha Christie. You just said that she's your
Yes.
favorite. And so this book is a very interesting book that you've written, right? And even the cover is it's very beautifully done cover, right?
I think the credit to that would go to my husband and his partner, that the company called It's Alive, they're an agency and they do a lot of design work. So Nikhil Singh and Paramveer are
They've done
responsible
it.
for
No,
that.
it's it I think it represents the book because the book is psychological horror with some paranormal thrown
Yes.
in. Is it because you're always interested in mystery and those kind of books, or is it something that came to you? What was the thought when you started writing this?
So interestingly, it's always been my favorite genre, the supernatural and crime. These are like the two
So
genres
you
that
managed to marry them.
I was like, okay, my two favorite things. How do I mix them up? It's like having gulab jamun and vanilla ice cream.
Yeah,
It's really
it's a good combination. It's a good combination.
so. And the another favorite author of mine is Stephen King,
Oh,
and
so you're pretty much in that
yeah,
space.
grew up reading a lot of both of them, along with, of course, Harry Mulish and many others. But when the pandemic hit, right, the lockdown came by. To be honest, we had just moved into our new home and I had nothing to complain about. We were so grateful that our time was going happily. We were unpacking, setting up the house, our family, friends that we knew close, they were all doing well. suddenly this whole thing about doing WhatsApp calls, video calls,
Yeah,
Zoom,
every
everything
family
was,
started it.
yeah, and you hadn't spoken to probably your relatives as I've probably not spoken to them in 35 years as much as I did, or in 40 years as much as I did through the pandemic. So it was a nice, beautiful change. Um, but then also started coming in a lot of stories
Yeah.
of people going through a lot of despair. There's a lot of despair, a lot of grief, a lot of loss, and a lot of helplessness,
True.
right?
Yeah, I think the helplessness was just
Yeah.
tremendous.
Yeah. And that drove me to ask myself that, I'm so lucky and I'm very grateful. But if I was in that position, what would I do? you know Imagine if I didn't have this. And that's what formed the core plot of the book.
That's a very brave of you, but it's a very tough what if question to ask
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah,
right? Like, what if I were in that
yeah,
position? Most people were just trying to not even look in that
yeah.
direction. A very tough question to ask yourself.
But I think that also stems from the person I am. My mom always told me growing up, saying that don't compare yourself with people who have what you don't. Always be grateful by looking at the people who don't have what you do. And because I'm that person, and thanks to them, blame it on them that I'm this incurable optimist as well. That for me it is always my way of feeling good and grateful for what I have is, what if I was in that? You, you know. So that kind of drove me to realize that I am really truly blessed. However, the um, feeling of helplessness, like we spoke about, was something that was deep set in, because
Yeah.
there were people, even if they just lived in the neighboring building, that you couldn't do anything to help them. How much can you do over a call
Yeah,
or video
true.
calls? And that feeling of helplessness just grew and grew and grew in me. And that's when I realized that I want to talk about it. And I didn't want to talk about it as, somebody who knows what it takes about mental health, it takes to overcome, because I'm not an expert in that. And I didn't want to be all preachy about it and, all of that. So I thought, let's do what I do best, is tell a fictional story.
And that's when this book
And that's
started.
how this book started. So the book is, just a gist of it. It's the first person narrative of Maya, who's telling you as a reader what she's feeling and experiencing. So in the pandemic, she's alone in her house, and she starts having these supernatural, these hauntings. She
And
starts
experiences.
experiences where she starts seeing, feeling. I don't know.
Don't read it at night.
So people have
Have
told
to
me
read it at
that. People have told me that they're avid readers, but they do that at the night. And this is something they started and said, no, I need a daylight to read. So I took that as a big compliment, honestly. And so she's telling you what she feels. And then midway, I switched the narrative to her sister Mira, who is in another country. And she's telling you as a reader what her sister Maya is possibly going
possibly
through
going through.
through Mira's lens. So now as a reader, you
Have
can
a third party view, kind of.
and you can also sort of relate to what Maya may be going through, either something that you've been through or somebody that you know. And you start questioning, is it all supernatural, or is she really dealing with something more? Is it to do with mental health? And from Mira's point of view, if you're probably somebody who can relate more, you start feeling the helplessness that we all did, until you get to know in the climax what really happens, which I'm not telling you.
Yeah, yeah. Saying, should I read the last page first?
No, though we've all done that.
And I've never done that.
No?
No.
My God, you're an exception
I have
then.
never done that because I hate spoilers. So I've never done that. And I'll look at how many pages to go and I'll kind of but I'll never read the end.
Wow, that's called willpower. I have done that.
Because you're also into this is kind of a space that you enjoy,
Yeah.
the whole mystery thriller.
So the funny thing is, I'll see the end, or I'll read the end, and then I'll still go back and read the entire book. But at least now I'm like, okay, I can be a little less scared about it.
I know what's going to happen. No, because there are books that can create massive anxiety,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I read a lot of non-fiction or historical fiction, in which case, or autobiographies. The point is, I already know the end,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's very little stress that's going to happen
Yeah.
during the reading of the book.
Yeah.
I I think I haven't read. In fact, if I think about it, I haven't read uh, a thriller since college.
So this is the
Maybe,
time to start.
yeah. I
Yeah,
no, I've
this.
started reading it already. I
Yes.
haven't finished it yet.
Yes.
I'm already like, maybe 20, 30 pages in because I
Nice.
got it yesterday.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm going to be reading a thriller slash mystery after 25
Wow.
years.
I do hope this is the one that will bring you to actually enjoy thrillers and
Done.
psychological thrillers.
So, did you do a lot of study on psychology, or was it all
I
drawn from
did.
personal experience?
I did. I don't think it would be fair to not do it if it's a subject that I wanted to explore. Let's say that. I wouldn't say that I did extensive study. A lot of it was drawn from whether it's personal or people I know. But I did go back to do a little bit of research to corroborate the theories.
Ah, okay,
You
got
know,
it. Yeah, you can't really refer to something unless you're completely certain.
yeah. Also, what I've explored is the fine line between the supernatural and the psychological. So, what I did realize is, and I will also tell you where that inspiration came from, a movie called Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I remember watching it.
Yes. And I went back and actually heard the original tapes of Annalise, I forget her last
Why
name.
would you do that?
You know, fascination. I mean, my favorite genre.
Spooky.
I love horror, I love thrillers. So, but also, yes, I was really fascinated because it was the court case after that, where the parents and the priest were taken to court for negligence. And the medical community said that she needed medical help, but she did not get that. Whereas the parents and the priests had tried it, it didn't work. And because Annalise herself was a very spiritual person, she preferred to go with the exorcism. And unfortunately, she did not survive. The Now that is a very fascinating, subject for me
Where does
because
the psychological finish and paranormal start, and vice
yes, or vice
versa?
versa. And unless and until you're an expert in both, it's really going to be difficult to get down to the truth of it. So, depending on what's your preference and your bent of mind, you will pick a side, right? You will choose a side. And because I've always been so fascinated about that, I started reading up a little more and I realized that some of the phenomena, some of the factors, the symptoms are similar.
It's almost very difficult to
It is difficult to tell,
pinpoint.
right? And that I thought it would be good to explore. So
Very interesting.
it's a fictional tale, but it is drawn from certain amount of research and
Real life.
real life.
Yeah, because I do honestly believe that there's so many times when people say, it just came to me, it's my gut feel, I got a premonition about something that's going to happen. Technically, all of those things would fall into a paranormal bucket, so to speak, some of it. Or I saw someone, or, I had a vision. I saw my father, or, I saw a guru, or whatever. And, um, and then there's the whole mind and the
Yeah.
psychology of the mind. So
Yeah.
it may not even, it's not about mental health per
Per
se,
se.
just psychology or how the mind works.
Yeah.
But I think that we're all what is now called universal intelligence.
Yes.
The point is that you're connected to the universe and the energies are all, so there are moments when you connect with another
Yes.
frequency or
Yes.
another energy and you flip and
Yes.
and you get messages. And I think a lot of authors have said that as well. This book came to me, or this Neil Donald Walsh said it.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. I think.
And Stephen Hawking said it.
Yes, Stephen Hawking said it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he was a man of science.
Yeah.
But I do believe that what today, whether you call it quantum physics, you call it occult science, I mean, this is all a part of science in a way. Miracles are science that's yet not been
Explained, basically, yeah.
Correct. At some point, maybe we'll find an explanation for some of these phenomena, and then we will not find it as unbelievable anymore. But I do believe that there is a world out there that cannot always be explained, no matter how progressive the science may get. There is a world out there which, even if it is explained, it's not going to be explained in the conventional sense.
No, I think that is so true, so true, because so many things in our world are not visible.
Yes.
They're not tangible. They can
Yes.
only be experienced.
Yes.
And I think if you had to put a practical thing on it, Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
right? You can't see it, you can't feel it, but you experience it, and you experience the lack of it if it's not there. And if I had to explain it to somebody who never knew what Wi-Fi was, if I went to a village, they'd never heard
Yeah.
what the internet was. I think in today's day and age,
Yeah.
finding that person on earth is going to be difficult, but I'm sure there'll be pockets somewhere.
There is.
If they don't understand internet, they don't understand Wi-Fi, they don't understand this concept at all, and I go in there and I say, I can talk to people on the other side of the world, and there is this thing called the internet, and there is Wi-Fi, and I can see somebody, they can see me, and we can do a video conference. It would seem like hocus pocus to them. And I think that's what we're going through in so many of the phenomena that are yet to be explained by modern science.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they get put into the category of, occult or
There is a huge,
Quantum.
huge world out there, and it's like, honestly, it's like the black hole. And I can tell you that because I have ventured a little into it, whether it's reading books, watching videos, listening to podcasts, speaking to some experts. It's it's like the black hole. The
yeah,
more
you
start
don't even
knowing
know what you don't know.
you just get sucked in. You
Yeah.
just get sucked in, and the more you know, that much more you think that I want to more know, and that much more there is to know, and that's how less you know.
Yeah, correct. No, and I think that's when you start exploring a field and you start studying it and learning about it, you realize that I don't even know this much of
Yes.
what there is to know.
Yes, yes. There's a very interesting book by Richard Bach called One.
Yes.
Have you read
Yes,
that?
yes.
So while everybody knows Livingston Seagull, but One is my favorite book
I
of
love
his.
One.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then you know exactly like
Yeah.
the whole concept of parallel universe, because that's what they're exploring there.
Yeah.
And can it be discarded entirely? I don't think so. The
No,
theory.
I don't think you can discard it. There may be people who choose to discard it because it just doesn't sit within their belief system at
Yeah.
all. And we can all agree to disagree on that one.
Yes.
But there is a whole lot of how the world and the universe works, how our mind works, how our bodies work, how we're connected to each other. A lot of that is still to be explained by by the parameters that are available to us
Yes.
today. But you can't deny their existence.
You cannot. I
Because I think there is a sense of something bigger. It's like an ant on a tire.
Yeah.
You can't see the tire, but it knows that there's something bigger
There.
than me, or I'm part of something much larger. I think that's
Yes.
what it is.
Yes.
The other thing that, coming back to freedom, I'd said I want to speak about that. How much of the freedom that you got, as a kid, as a teenager, maybe after marriage, the job options and choices that you had, how do you think they shape you and your choices, including writing a book or traveling? And how can possibly one create more freedom within their lives, a freedom of choice, maybe?
Going back to what I said, I'm very blessed. So I would consider I'm one of those exceptions. Truly. Freedom, I never needed to ask for it. Whether it was growing up, having two elder sisters,
They'd already done they'd gone through the walls and bloodied
Exactly.
themselves.
Exactly. So my parents, by the time it was my time, they were like, okay, what do you really want to do? You can do that. I'm sure my sisters don't feel exactly the same way because, like you said,
The first one through the wall gets bloodied.
exactly. So it's I would say that freedom was not something I needed to ask for. even when I was getting into this industry, I come from a family of, my dad was in the army, but artists, engineers, business, doctors, nobody was there in the entertainment industry. When I wanted to come here at the age of 21, there was a lot of concern
Yeah.
because all they knew was what they read in the newspapers and saw on news.
Yeah,
And
that
they
wasn't
were,
always flattering.
it wasn't. So there was a lot of concern. But my father said, if that's really what you want to do, go, try it. You know that you can always come back home. You know that you have a way back. And I said, okay. Of course, mom was a little more paranoid. So she would come to all my workplaces initially and
Check it out.
check it out, meet who I'm working with, and just to ensure. And then she'd be like, okay, good people, good place, no stress. Then, of course, they got to know a little more about the workspace and the people, and they realized that, okay, it's really not what you read about. It's a very, very wonderful. It's a family, because every project that you work with, you're spending so much time with your colleagues and your
True.
teammates that they actually become your really close friends and family.
No, I agree. There are friends of mine who I did a show with 20 years ago or 15 years ago, but you catch up and you meet up like it was yesterday, because the bonding that you have during that time is so strong.
Yeah. And you know that I've not spoken to, say, you for like, I don't know, 10 years. But when I call you and say, hey, I probably need this,
Yeah,
none of us would hesitate.
No, not at all. I mean, it's a very natural call that there's a relationship where you can pick up the phone and say
Yes.
that, listen, I need a favor. Can you help
Yes.
me out? And there's no beating around the bush.
There
You don't
is.
say, Acha bhai, kaise ho?
Exactly.
You just pick up the phone saying, listen, urgent.
Correct.
Call me back. Need a
Correct.
favor. There's no hidden
There's-
agendas. Even if you
Yes.
call with an agenda, it's
Yeah.
upfront and people respect that.
And it's accepted. And so, like I said, freedom was not the issue from home. When I came into the real world, let's just call it that, I think what was important was to know how to use my freedom. I came across a lot of people who were struggling with freedom. So for me, that first step was already done.
Yeah.
And I saw people who got this sudden freedom and
Didn't know how to handle
didn't know
it.
how to handle it. There was a lot of impulsiveness, there was rash decisions. I did that too. I'm not going to at all, I'm not holier than thou at all. I have done that too.
We all
we're
goof
all
up.
human,
Yeah, we all
right?
goof up. Yeah.
So the big thing was responsibility again of how do you manage your freedom? Because now that you've got this, though my parents were like, go do, it's like Ja Simran Ja Ji Le Apni Zindagi. That happened, but I never actually done it. So now you're stepping out and you're on your own and you have to manage your own finances and you have to find your own home and suddenly you have to be like, oh, khana, pina. You don't have anybody calling you up and saying, beta, ghar kitne baje aa rahe ho?
So no deadlines.
No deadline.
You want to drink, not drink. How
Yes.
much do you,
how much do you
want
drink
to
when you don't have to go back home and worry that, oh, okay, I need to probably at least walk straight home, right? You're not worried about that. So there was a lot of these challenges, I would say. However, because I had people around me who were experiencing freedom the first time in a very different way, I suddenly grew up saying, oh, okay, maybe I need to be the responsible one and take care. Which was, I don't know, right, wrong, whatever, but it definitely strengthened a bond. The where freedom actually was difficult, and I would say even though there was freedom, but there wasn't, is when I in a workspace where how do you deal with office politics, for example,
Yeah, that's a tough one.
when you come into a certain position, how much freedom do you have to exercise the power that you hold? Now, these are questions which you'd never, you're not
Had to ask
taught
people.
the answers,
No.
and you didn't have to ask. So when you're growing up, even if it's in a job, and you're learning, you're junior, it doesn't matter. You're there to just ragda maro.
हाँ, execution,
कर लो.
डांट पड़ गई, yes sir, three sir,
Yeah.
3 bags full sir, and okay, tomorrow it
Correct.
won't happen. You learn and
You move on.
You move on.
But when you come into a position of responsibility and power, that's when you have to know how to use your freedom. That's when you know you have the freedom and can you actually use it. So these are, I think, very important to know that for a person to get to that place, you have to value the freedom that you've got.
And not misuse
And
it.
not misuse it. There are now coming back to the households where a lot of women come from no freedom or a lot of very conservative backgrounds, I don't think they're entirely wrong in terms of having a certain grudge. They do have a lot of grudges against their families, and I've seen that. I don't think it's wrong, but I also think it is unfair to completely swing the other way and say, "Ab to मुझे कुछ भी नहीं करना है." There's a lot of that happens. So that
It's
brings me,
like the rubber band's been pulled back,
and then
back,
it
back, and now it
snaps.
just snaps and goes to the other extreme, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Maybe they'll find the balance at some point.
Yes. So
But
I think, like I said, I've been blessed. Not everybody, and that's why I call myself an exception in that, from upbringing and background point of view. Um, any kind of extreme is not good, in my opinion. Any kind of extreme.
yeah, in anything. I think extremes happen when you're not mindful of what you're doing. I think when you do anything mindfully, whether you eat mindfully or you drink mindfully, even reading 24 hours a day is, is
Yes.
an extreme and is
Yes.
not necessarily the best thing for you. So I think as long as you're trying to live mindfully, extremes are rare. But when you just get into this numb space, which I see a lot of young people living that way. It's like
Yeah.
you're scrolling
Yeah.
on digital media and it's just this numb space.
Yeah.
And because you're numb to what's going on around you, you get sucked into doing things mindlessly.
Yeah.
So if you're scrolling mindlessly. If you're watching something, you're binge watching all night, and the next day office is,
Yeah.
you're a zombie,
Yeah.
even though you get to work.
Yeah.
Same thing with drinking, eating, shopping. There are a lot of addictions that are coming up now, but on the other hand, I also see a lot of youngsters who are beginning to live mindfully very early on.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
most of us got into our
Yes.
senses in our 30s, late 30s,
Yes.
40s. I see a lot of youngsters being a lot
Yes.
more aware of how they want to live their life.
I think a lot to do is with the exposure that they get. Like, we didn't have that much
Yeah,
exposure,
true.
right?
We were
It
clueless.
was, matlab, I remember the first time when we got a cordless phone from the landline, and the first time I saw, oh, the old computers and then the internet where just make all that strange
Yeah, yeah.
sounds.
Trrr,
Yeah.
trrr, the dial up.
Yeah, I remember the pager. My God, the pager coming in was such a big deal. Like, oh my God. So yeah, so I think for today's like youngsters, in that sense, the exposure is vast. But going back to what you mentioned about scrolling, the mindless scrolling, I see it a lot in our older generations now,
Yeah.
because it's sad, but like parents, that generation, they have suddenly gotten addicted to social media. Like, I know my mom, my mother-in-law, like, so they're on Instagram, and I think it's really cool that they're on Instagram and they're doing this cool video things. And my mom-in-law's got her own, has started her own YouTube, like, she's posting her videos and everything. I think it's very cool. It's incredible. But I also know that they get so sucked into it. So this scrolling in the night business, I have to like tell them, hello, what's going on?
Time to go to sleep
Time to
now.
go to bed, right?
Tables have turned.
Yeah, and my mom is like, oh, right. Now it reminds me of when I used to tell you to go to bed in school and you didn't want to. Now you want to tell me.
think बस बहुत हो गया बस सो जाओ.
But coming back to what I mean to say is, I think it is a lot to do with uh, there is so much to explore out there. And while the internet has been, truly, it's a boon for everybody. It's been great. Again, moderation, right? It's important that how do you know where to stop? How do you know where to draw the line?
Yeah, I say that a lot as well. It's how you choose to bring in that experience into your life, or how you choose to engage with that asset. It
Yeah.
could be an asset, it could become a liability. It depends on how you engage with it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's part of growing up. I guess everybody figures it out. Everyone's got their own journey. Just because, we're all on our own journey, and
Yes.
if you're on a journey of self growth or personal development, suddenly certain things start making sense, and certain
Yes.
things say, okay, this I don't want in my life, and this I want in my life, and you start curating it.
Yeah.
But I think everyone has a
Oh,
There are
absolutely.
different journeys and different places,
Yeah,
like I say, वो सांप सीढ़ी पे आप कौन से नंबर पर हो और
correct.
कौन से नंबर पे,
Correct. Which
we're
is
all
why I believe that you can't, not everybody has got the same journey as you have,
ever, yeah.
and not everybody is going to have the same one. So, best is not to complain or compare oneself.
Yeah,
You know,
agreed.
it's
Totally.
not in the good way or in the bad way. You do what you do best and what you need to do,
Yeah.
and everybody else will figure it out.
So, have you ever stepped, since we're talking about unboxing and that's the podcast, and this is your first
Yes,
podcast?
it is my first
Yay!
podcast. Special, very special. I'm so happy that's with you.
So, unboxing was really about stepping out of your boundaries and stepping out of your comfort zones. Do you recall any moment where you kind of stepped out of your comfort zone and said, I've done it?
Yes, many.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think my stepping into the entertainment world was the first.
And what was the thing that got you to make that move?
One was passion for storytelling was
Mm.
always there.
Yeah.
Okay, and when I was in college, in fact, when I was in my first year, it was I was doing commerce because कुछ और करने को नहीं था वो टाइम पे पता नहीं था लाइफ में करना
Same,
क्या है.
same, same.
I knew कि I wanted to give my UPSC exam and I wanted to honestly I wanted to like consider IAS and oh I want to go change the world, I want to go into politics, like there was a lot of that happening with me at that time. But my parents were like, till you figure out, BCom कर लो फिर देख लेना. I said, अच्छा ठीक है, what else do you do? So my first year, I remember I wanted to direct a film. I said, ये तो करना है storytelling, and what better than to be a director, because that's what when you're not in the industry, कि director होता है, producer होता है, cameraman होता है, writer होता है, editor होता है.
हाँ.
So it's like the best thing, right, to do. Of course, couple of years went by and you're a child at that time literally and you think okay, हो जाएगा, of course मैं तो कहानी लिख लूंगी और फिर मैं तो जाके डायरेक्ट कर
बस
लूंगी
ऐसे ही हो
बस.
जाएगा.
I didn't know how to go about any of it and I didn't even ever think that I would get into the industry. I never planned for it. By the end of first year I had forgotten that I wanted to direct a film, honestly. When I was closer to my third year, I was so clueless with life. A friend of mine was working with Balaji at that time, with Ekta. And she was a year senior in my college. So she'd already started work. And she said, why don't you just come and give it a shot? Try it. If you don't like it, go back, figure out. I said, okay. So I joined Balaji Telefilms as a trainee creative assistant. Okay. And I used to live in Pune with my family. So that was unboxing number one because I had no plans of or no roadmap or anything. I came with a duffel bag of clothes for like maybe a week, 10 days. I came and I was staying with my cousin at Juhu. And I said, okay, let's start.
Let's see how,
Let's see
how,
how it
how it goes.
goes. I went my first day. They said, oh, go to the set and all. I was clueless. I didn't know what I'm supposed to do. But wonderful people out there. I remember my cinematographer that time, Deepak Malvankar, and he saw, he said,
ये कोई तो बच्चा है.
इसको कुछ पता नहीं है, इसकी शक्ल पे दिख रहा है, lost सी है. He said, come. And he took me under his wing and he really put me through the right people. There was Suraj Singh, who was my head of production at that time. There was Aparna, who was my boss. She was a creative head then. She's now in the US. All of these people were so lovely. There was Tanushri at Balaji, and they really, really helped guide me to say, okay, you're a trainee, you're here to learn.
Now
So
learn.
now learn, right? And I'm so glad it was my first job, Tanvi, because I think I learned so much on ground. One is technical skills, how a show is made. The second was soft skills, also what it takes,
To get
whether,
things done,
yeah,
yeah.
to get things done. How do you talk to people? How do you manage people? Because I
Yeah,
was,
no, there are actors, there are technicians,
yes,
everyone's egos and tempers are running high
yes,
sometimes, and there's
yes.
stress on the set or there's a deadline close by. That's very
Exactly,
important, yeah.
exactly. And I was coming from a world where everybody's talking to you very nicely and polished, and and suddenly you come here and say, "Hey, क्या time नहीं है, चलो चलो जल्दी जल्दी जल्दी," and you're like, okay. So it was great. So that was, I think, my first fish out of water moment. I never went back. I had to go back, touch wood, because it was more about, I think, one was key. Now that I'm here, I'm enjoying it, and I really, really found my clan, so to speak. The second was also, now that I've come here, I need to do something about myself. You know, even though
So there
like
was an ambition
there
and
was
there was
an
a
ambition.
fire to do something. Yeah.
Totally. And even though my parents would be like, and I would cry because, you're working long hours, you're not used to it, you miss home, you miss mom's food, all of that. And they'd be like, you can come back. And moment,
No,
like
no,
they
no,
would
no, no,
say,
no.
yeah, moment they would say, you can come back. I would be like, no, no, I'm fine. This is all just a part of it. I'm fine. And, I would be like, no, no, I can't. I have to do something. I needed to find my identity. It was very
No,
important
and
to me.
find it you did from
I
there
did.
to where you are
I
today.
did.
That's
So
absolutely wonderful.
I think the second time it happened was around 2009. I got really tired of the amount of daily soaps, and I started feeling a little bit of burnout. And at that time, there was this Strippy the Cub, this campaign that I think Vodafone has started. I don't
Mm.
remember, about the tigers dwindling, the number of tigers dwindling in India. And I love animals, and I had a passion for them. So I quit television. I said I'm going to take a sabbatical, and I got into wildlife conservation. And I
Oh,
started, that's when I used to come to Delhi on and off, because I came and met a lot of these NGOs that, work for wildlife welfare.
conservation. Yeah. Mhm.
And I started asking them, how do I join you? How do I volunteer? And they would give me little things to do. And that I started doing a lot of research around the whole illegal wildlife trade. And I started writing a story around it. That was the second time that I came into a world that I didn't know anything about. I had no idea. I went under one of the undercover operations also. I met a couple of poachers. Why do they do it? How do they do it? It was incredible. Then I went back to the entertainment industry because I realized that my responsibility, like you rightly said, is I still have something to say.
Yeah, I went off social and came back after 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
only because I felt I still have something to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came back because I said, if I want to tell the story, I can do it
Better the way I know how. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So that was, so these I think have been two. And now, of course, my journey as an author.
So, from what I understand, your key to stepping out of your comfort zone, to really unboxing who you thought you were into becoming who you're meant to be, I think the key that you've shared is basically passion that
Yes,
kind of drove you and gave you the strength to,
always,
well,
always.
I think passion plays a very important, strange, hard to explain role in our lives, but
Yes,
it drives so many of our decisions, right?
yes. I think one of the, I don't know if it's a flaw, strength, whatever it is, but one of my traits is I wouldn't say that I get bored of things easily. I think it's more about once I have achieved it to a certain level, I start feeling what more, right? I'm always looking to push the boundaries with myself.
Mm.
I feel like I have one life and we're here for a limited time. What more can I do?
Yeah.
And that what more can I do is not coming from a place of me desiring fame or glamour or more money. I mean, of course, nobody wants less money, but it's
Yeah.
coming more from a place of what more can I do to, I don't know, help somebody in whatever way that I can, right?
Mm.
What more can I do to volunteer? So they're
Yeah, what
pushing the
more can I
barrier.
do to live up to what I know I have within me? Maybe, figure out
Yes.
what else am I capable of.
Yeah, just be better.
Mm.
What more can I do to be better, to do better, to do more?
Mm.
And I think the concept of doing more, also when you know that it's going to benefit anybody else, like whatever I have been through in my last, whatever, 20, 25 years, or it's there have been learnings.
Yeah.
Now, if I can just share these learnings, and if it'll help any of the, people like me who didn't know, who were clueless,
Yeah.
anything.
It's like paying it forward also in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that kind of drives me where I'm like, okay, now what more can I? So constant learning.
Mm.
It's important to constantly learn. The day you feel like you know it, you've arrived, I don't need to learn anymore, you're done. You're done.
Yeah, that I so buy that point
Yeah.
because we've all had, especially I've had in my early, you know, late 20s, early 30s, when you've achieved a certain level of success, you've been in the industry, and you have moments of, yeah, I know this,
Yeah.
I know this. And that's when you realize that your growth
Yeah.
stops.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
I realized that quickly and came down to mother and had family around me who were very good at grounding you, and I
Yes.
think that's very
That
important.
is very important. You need the people around you to tell you, hey, come down, it's okay. You don't know it yet. It's important, I think.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much all my family, especially my husband, he does that, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
It's so important because otherwise it's easy to get lost,
Yeah.
and then you don't know when you start falling.
No, I think we all need anchors, and our
We
family
need
can be that
anchors.
anchor. Yeah, true.
Yes.
And family, you can define family any which way you want, but you need those
Oh,
anchors.
absolutely. Family is not always blood
No,
relatives.
no. But our conversations kind of come full circle. We started off with people. We've kind of reached a point where
Yes.
we realize the importance of people again. And I didn't plan this. That's just how it happened. Thank you so much, Pragati, for being with us here today. It's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Tanvi. Pleasure's all mine. And thank you so much to all your audience, all our wonderful listeners. It's really, really a pleasure to be here.
Well, all the best on the book. That's it on Unbox with Tanvi, and we'll catch you on another episode soon.